Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We have made it to the end of the week. We've got good, crazy martinis for you today. And there'll be a little bit of football talk at the end of the program with the Super Bowl, of course, on Sunday, and also yesterday's passing of longtime Bears owner Virginia Hallis McCaskey. A couple thoughts on that. And so, Jim, let's dive right into our good martini. And, we talked many different times about the introduction, the debate, and finally the passage of the Laken Riley Act. And then you're like, well, hopefully this has some effect, and we end up deporting people who are not only not supposed to be in the country, but are causing mayhem in this country. And now we got a perfect example of this. This story comes to us courtesy of CWB Chicago, which reports Santiago Josue Baragas Rodriguez, a Venezuelan migrant arrested 13 times in a year, received the old good news, bad news treatment on Thursday. The good news, a judge gave him probation for trying to rob a woman in Streeterville in November. The bad news for him, since he pleaded guilty, he's now eligible for deportation. In this particular case, Mr. Baragas Rodriguez was using a rock to try to break the lock off of a woman's electric bike. He was already on pretrial release for 3 separate shoplifting cases at the time of the robbery attempt. He entered his guilty plea barely a week after President Trump signed the Laken Riley Act, which, quote, mandates the federal detention of illegal immigrants who are accused of theft, burglary, assaulting a law enforcement officer, and any crime that causes death or serious bodily injury. Prosecutors on Thursday dropped the 3 active shoplifting cases Baragas Rodriguez faced, including on May of last year, a Macy's employee accusing him of shoplifting. He was on pretrial release at that time for allegedly shoplifting from the Nordstrom rack on May 3rd in East Chicago. And on April 4th of last year, he was arrested for trespassing after allegedly refusing to leave the Northwestern Memorial Hospital parking garage, and prosecutors, for some reason, dropped that case. He also didn't show up on May 16th of last year for a case that accused him of assault and criminal trespassing in the Loop. Jim, Andy McCarthy is famous for saying that if you spend a lot of time in jail, it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, and this guy racked up a Lifetime Achievement Award in less than a year. It's pretty obvious. This is like a textbook case of why this law is necessary. Slap on the wrist, for each individual thing, but cumulatively, or with this new law, maybe individually, get out of here.
So, Greg, as listeners probably know, I write columns for the Washington Post. And earlier this year, I wrote a column headlined, Pass the Laken Riley Act. Right? I really like being a conservative columnist at a mainstream publication. It means I'm out there making a conservative argument that these readers may not encounter otherwise. One of my colleagues, more left of center, who I think of very highly, though, Catherine Rampell, and not always left of center. She was the one who had the famous column right after Kamala Harris had introduced the basic outline of her economic plan. And basically the headline was, if you're going to be accused of being a communist, maybe don't start with price controls. So she had written one saying, don't pass the Laken Riley Act, and made several objections to it. One of the objections that I can understand in theory, but that actually doesn't work in practice, is the argument that, well, based on this, you could be deported just for being arrested on these charges. Haven't had your day in court. This hasn't been adjudicated. The state has not proven that you've committed this crime. And again, in theory, I get that objection, but let me remind you, we're talking about illegal immigrants, and that first term there really matters. They are in the country illegally. So this other stuff is bad, but you're already doing enough to be deported back to your country of citizenship. And that is what is happening here. This is why we wanted to do this. This is why, before this guy goes out and commits some other violent crime, before it gets worse, this is how it's supposed to work. The justice system is not supposed to be a revolving door. Fantastic. I hope we hear a lot more cases of it, but maybe we won't, in that apparently, there are reports that the number of people attempting to cross the border shockingly dropped after January 20th. I don't know if something changed right around then. New York Post headline was Trump saying, was it something I said? But either maybe people will, to use that old Romney phrase, from self-deport. Maybe people who are in the country illegally will realize, oh, wow, if I get arrested on any of these charges, even if I haven't done it, there's always a chance I will deport. In other words, any run-in with the law could end up with me deported. Maybe I should go back home to my home country. I've made my money here, or I should go back. I should figure out a way to get into the country legally if I really want to become an American. And if you don't want to become an American, maybe go back to your home country, put down roots there, and try to make life better in your home country.
So this is a great new tool, and something tells me with the way the justice system is working in Chicago, where we're not going to go all the way to prosecute here. We'll do this over here. That's how bad people get to stay because they don't actually complete the process.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm sure they're saying on the streets of Chicago now, Greg?
What?
This is MAGA country.
That's right.
Look out, Jesse Smollett.
All right. Well, let's talk about your small business because you don't know what's going to be happening economically or otherwise, but there are certain steps you can take to make sure that your business is as strong as possible. And one of those is to get NetSuite by Oracle. More than 38,000 businesses have future-proofed their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the leading cloud ERP platform. It integrates key business functions like accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one seamless system.
So whether your company is small or earning hundreds of millions of dollars, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Gain real-time insights and forecasting to make proactive, data-driven decisions. With actionable data at your fingertips, you can anticipate trends and respond faster to opportunities.
Small business experts, small business owners will tell you it's going to make your life a whole lot easier to have good tools to take some of this off of your shoulders and you can focus on what you do best. And there's no better way to do that than NetSuite by Oracle. And on top of that, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/martini. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/martini. That's netsuite.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our first crazy martini now. And for that, we're back to Michigan politics. Boy, I got to say, my home state is not covering itself in glory lately as we talk about some of these things that are happening politically there. Hopefully, it's not Senator Buttigieg, but I've seen a poll that shows him well ahead of other Democratic possible candidates. And I don't know who the Republicans really have to run, so I really just hope that doesn't happen. But he's not the focus of our crazy martini today. No, this is the story of a state lawmaker named Lori Pohutsky. She is a state representative, and here's the story as told by the Free Beacon, but a lot of people are doing this. She made this public, so it's no secret. A Democratic Michigan state representative told protesters Wednesday that she underwent voluntary sterilization to avoid becoming pregnant during President Donald Trump's second term. Quote, just under 2 weeks ago, I underwent surgery to ensure that I would never have to navigate a pregnancy in Donald Trump's America, according to the left-leaning, to be charitable outfit, the Michigan Advance. Quote, I refuse to let my body be treated as currency by an administration that only sees value in my ability to procreate. So, Jim, there's been a lot of choice comments, specifically from the right, about, well, it's not going to be the worst thing for humanity if people like this don't procreate. But on the flip side, whether this is performative, assuming she's actually done this, or whether she's just trying to gather attention to herself, I don't know. But let's just assume for the moment that she did this. That's serious mental illness happening, that you believe that because a certain person is president, that all of a sudden you have to take this sort of drastic action. And somehow that the potential of becoming pregnant is the greatest nightmare you could possibly face. So we've talked about this before. You don't have to like who was elected. You can be really, really frustrated by a lot of their policies and their statements. We certainly were during the 4 years of the Biden administration. And depending on what Trump does, it could be the case there as well. But to react like this drives your entire future planning, is crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to skip over all of the, snarky, who would want to have kids with you jokes and stuff like that. And just kind of observe. Like, first, I don't know whether this lawmaker already has had kids and no longer, has a family and does not want to have any more, or whether she's never had the chance to enjoy the benefits of parenthood. But I feel like in our society, parenthood really gets a bad rap. You announce that your loved one is pregnant, or you announce that you're expecting, and for some reason, everyone feels the need to tell horror stories. You're never going to sleep again. You're never going to have sex again. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be stressed at work. There's going to be spit up on your shirt. It's going to, Everyone seems to tell you horror stories, and I understand why we do this. And whenever I hear someone is expecting, I always try to tell them, this is the best thing that's ever going to happen to you in your life. Yeah, you're going to be exhausted. You are going to have spit up on your shirt. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be the most worthwhile thing. And I don't, think I'm exaggerating when I speak for you, Greg, that like the most important job we really have are as dads, and this is what makes life worthwhile. And this is kind of what we're here to do. That hopefully you and I make a good podcast every day. But when we keel over, hopefully what they really say is, each one of them made two good kids and who grow to two good adults. And life is, that's really your legacy. That's really what you do in this world. And I hope this state lawmaker has not thrown all that away because she's really upset about the results of the election. Trump's not going to ban condoms. Trump's not going to ban birth control pills. Trump's not going to ban IUDs. There's this, everyone jumps straight to, is it Gilead was the Handmaid's Tale? Like they always just seem to think it's that. And a lot of this comes out of the, some of us think life begins at conception or somewhere around there, and that you really shouldn't be treating the unborn as an expendable resource that you can strip mine for stem cells and things like that. You say things like that and people automatically say, aha, you just want to control women's bodies. No, I'll speak slower. Listen to words coming out of my mouth. You'll get more understanding of what the actual thinking is here. It's Friday afternoon. We're going to get strangely philosophical on this one. There's this saying that everybody has a God-shaped hole in your heart, and you can try to fill it up with anything, but sooner or later you still have that God-shaped hole. I'm not going to tell people how to believe, but I do think that people have tried to put politics into that hole in their heart. They've tried to find meaning in it, and as a result, it gives them a good side. It gives them an evil side, and it gives them, a vision of the apocalypse. It gives them a vision. The particular woke one just really doesn't have much redemption. Once you are one of their bad folks, you can never redeem yourself. That's one of the big sales pitches for Christianity. No matter how much you've screwed up, God's going to understand and will forgive you. Try to fix things. That's a really important part that sometimes gets forgotten in here. But nonetheless, But it's like, I think when you don't have that, you end up making decisions like this. And the outcome of an election really becomes like the end of the world to you. And it really shouldn't. If you really think that what you're going, Trump's doing all kinds of, wild, crazy, unbelievable, condos in Mar-a-Lago, you'd never know what you're going to get from this administration. I get the idea of this driving you crazy. But the idea that you're going to make major life decisions because of who won the election, step back, touch grass, think about what you control, what you can't control, and go on with your life. Government is not supposed to be so central to the meaning of your existence. And, and also, I don't know if you want to talk about that before the entire state legislature.
That's probably something you should keep to a smaller conversation. But no, I agree with you very much. We certainly raise our kids from a Christian perspective, and we teach them to fear and honor the Lord and to follow Christ. But this is kind of like what happens the further you move to the left, because look at communism. What do? They're atheistic. They move God out, and the state is what they tried to make replace him. You think the Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade was bad? That is the worst trade you can make. So, and
these are the references you only get on this podcast. Only would you go from the most, high-minded, what is the purpose of life discussion to what appears to be one of the craziest trades in NBA history.
Yes, exactly. And I would point out, I was married and both of my kids were born while Barack Obama was president. Was I happy that Barack Obama was president? No, I was not happy that Barack Obama was president. I distinctly remember when he got reelected thinking, I'm not quite sure what the future is going to hold for these kids. But we still had another one after he was reelected. And you know what? They're great kids and we're doing fine. And so if you make politics your idol, this is going to lead to severe mental issues. Mark Halpern was just talking about it the other day. There's anxiety, stress, panic, physical health complications for people on the left that are similar, the doctor was saying, to what he saw after 9/11. People, step back. Like you said, touch grass. There's way more important things to be doing.
A footnote for this listenership of this podcast, including one particular former president named Barack Obama. Yes, Greg did build that.
Let's talk about something fantastic, and that is Omaha steaks. Jim and I have both gotten the box full of delicious Omaha steaks and burgers and so many different things. We can tell you that they're USDA certified tender. They taste great. Let me tell you something else that Mrs. Columbus loves. It's great and simple prep. So if you've had a busy day, and we all have busy days, or sometimes it gets a lot busier than you didn't expect it to, and you get home late, Omaha Steaks ready to go. And so that's a very simple way to have a super delicious meal that everybody's going to love without a lot of prep. So the new Omaha Steaks subscription plan gives you commitment-free flexibility with the ability to skip a shipment, swap selections, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. And right now they got a fantastic deal going, so make life easier by subscribing to the best. Subscribe to Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com/3ml and get 12 free burgers and free shipping for the life of your subscription. Every time you order, 12 free burgers and free shipping, plus an extra 10% off today and on every subsequent subscription shipment. Visit omahasteaks.com/3ml. All right, Jim, on to our third martini, but our second crazy martini of the day. And for that, we go to the issue that the mainstream media suddenly cared about after January 20th, but all of us care about it right now because the price of eggs is no joke. It is high, especially compared to a couple of years ago, but it was already on the rise well before Trump was inaugurated in January. But as recently as I think the first press conference. In fact, I think we played the clip when we talked about what a good first press conference Caroline Leavitt had. The question right in the front row is, what's he going to do? The price of eggs have skyrocketed since Trump took office. And so it's certainly a little bit bizarre to blame all of that on him on the first week, but it is an issue now that's on his plate, and he'll have to address to some extent here. But as you reported, there's a reason why egg prices are rising, and that reason's pretty crazy too. Yeah,
so here's the simple answer is bird flu. And I think most Americans have at least heard about it and have some sense of it. But I dug a little deeper. This was a Corner Post yesterday. So bird flu, this current version of bird flu really kind of came along in 2022. It's particularly contagious. And by the way, it spreads from not just poultry, chickens and turkeys and stuff like that. It also spreads through wild birds. So if you have a crow that gets into a place where you have poultry, there's a chance that it'll catch that. By the way, in case you're wondering, bird flu, very rarely, very few infections amongst human beings. Usually it manifests as like very minor infections, type symptoms, runny nose, sometimes pink eye, stuff like that. It's not pleasant, but it's not something that's going to kill you. We're not talking about COVID-19 2.0 or anything like that. But it can be killed, it can kill chickens. All right? So the U.S. Department of Agriculture has this problem. And they enacted what seemed like a good idea at the time. And there are a lot of times I love to make fun of idiot federal bureaucrats. I think on paper, this looked like a good plan. But as you always know, you enact any kind of policy, you can have all kinds of unforeseen consequences. And this is a fascinating story of this. So the USDA was like, look, we want everybody to nip any infection in the bud. We want everybody to act quickly. And we certainly don't want anyone downplaying or ignoring any potential outbreak. So if you have to cull a chicken because it's infected with, or your flock's been infected with bird flu, we will reimburse you for all of those chickens. They will also reimburse for the cleaning, because you got to disinfect everything. And it will also reimburse for any materials that can't be cleaned and reused, egg cartons or other equipment or stuff like that. Right? So you set this up and you're like, okay, so this way everybody is going to act very quickly. They're not going to hesitate to cull a chicken flock when they sense it, when they find an infection. This will work out great, right? Well, unsurprisingly, once the USDA says, well, we're going to pay for everything, guess what happened? Everybody started culling their flocks. Now, they probably should be, as far as they can tell, but what they didn't do, at least according to the USDA's inspection service, is do enough to prevent infections. And one of the ways you do this is you space out your flocks. The more spaced out they are, the less likely it is that an infection virus will spread from one group of birds to another. So, according to the USDA, 67 commercial poultry premises have been infected at least twice, and 19 premises have been infected 3 or more times. Out of those 19 premises, come on, people. What do you do? Like 2, I might even be able to get 3. Come on, you got to be doing a better job than that. And so they basically put in new restrictions, and they said they have to space them out. You have to take more precautions and stuff like that. But in other words, this well-meaning policy created a perverse. It made handling a outbreak of bird flu in your flock so easy for the poultry producers that they just said, all right, let's cull the flock, let's get rid of them. And our listeners are familiar with supply and demand. You have fewer chickens, you have fewer eggs. You have fewer eggs, you have fewer chickens born. There's this debate about which one came first, but that's really not important here. But the end result is and you look at it so. Also, this comment of egg prices have gone up. There are different measurements you can use. Like are you talking about extra large eggs? Are you measuring in cities? Are you measuring nationwide? But if it does feel like it just exploded out of nowhere, last fall they were like $2 for a dozen nationwide. When Trump took office, they were a little bit more than $6 a dozen. So that's tripling. And since Trump took office, they've gone up about another buck, at least according to USDA numbers. I don't know if the numbers are different at your local Trader Joe's or something like that. But the gist being that has it increased since Trump took office? Yeah. He's also been in office for 17 days. Is this day 18 or something? It's kind of unreasonable to expect that. Hopefully, this new set of USDA rules, there'll be more separation of the chickens, fewer outbreaks, fewer dead chickens that you can't eat, and more chickens are laying eggs, and you'll have restock supply. You reduce supply, you increase demand, prices are going to go up. So it has gone up really high, but it's really hard to pin this on Trump. And even the USDA decision to cull the herds, which I don't think anybody had bad intentions with that. It did have an inevitable, consequence of making culling the herds a little too easy and a little too quick to press that button to say, hey, let's cull all the chickens and start over again.
Just another lesson that whatever the government incentivizes is going to happen.
You get more of it. Yes. Yeah.
yes. If they tax it, you'll get less of it. If they subsidize it,
let's tax the culling. We might all get bird flu on our scrambled eggs, but still, it would work out really well. Egg prices would go down. So.
All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of quick football things before we exit for the weekend. By the time we return, obviously, we'll know who won the Super Bowl. Yesterday, the beloved owner of the Chicago Bears, Virginia Hallis McCaskey, passed away, daughter of not only Bears founder, but NFL founder George Hallis. She was 102, so she was around for pretty much the entire existence of the National Football League. She became the principal owner after he died in 1983. That was never the plan. Her brother, George Hallis Jr., who was, by all accounts, a brilliant football mind, was supposed to take over, but he unfortunately passed away before his dad. And so she got the team. She was there when the 85 Bears and the Super Bowl shuffle and all that happened. Since then, things have been a little more challenging, except for a bright spot about 20 years ago. And she was a very gracious lady. And Jim, it's been good to see a lot of reaction from around the league in honor of Mrs. McCaskey, including, I must say, a very generous statement from the Green Bay Packers, the Bears' biggest rival. However, my most indelible Virginia Hallis McCaskey memory, and the only time I remember actually being in the same place as her, was at the NFC Championship game following the 1996 season. I grew up in the UP of Michigan, where you're surrounded by Packers fans. So you can't hate the Packers that much while you're up there. And most of the time I was growing up, they weren't good. So it was pretty easy to not hate them. And so my best friend in high school and I, still a great friend, he and I have gone to games. We were actually at the first ever Lambeau Leap. We didn't know it was a big deal at the time, but that was interesting. And then another friend, the other guy who was going to go to the NFC Championship game with, couldn't go. So we went. That was Packers Panthers. First time Packers went back to the Super Bowl since the Lombardi era. My favorite part of the game, while I was happy for my Packer fan friends, was that Jim McMahon was actually Brett Favre's backup, and he came in to kneel down at the end. So I was cheering for Jim McMahon on the field. So then at the end of the game is the NFC Championship trophy presentation. It's the George Hallis Trophy. Virginia Hallis McCaskey is making the presentation, and Lambeau Field booed her for giving them a trophy. And I'm not going to say that has soured me more than losing to them a lot over the last 30 years, but that was definitely a turning point. Not the Lambeau crowd's best moment. When the Bears won the Super Bowl, they won the Vince Lombardi Trophy. I didn't have any problem with that. I don't think any Bears fan had any problem with that. If someone's handing you a trophy, you should just say thank you. But again, 102 and just an incredible life, 11 kids, and we'll see what happens with the team going forward.
My first thought, Greg, is that that anecdote you share is just appalling and disgraceful. Who do those people think they are? Philadelphia Eagles fans? Throwing batteries and booing Santa Claus and all that stuff. I also just want to point out, you have my deepest sympathies, Greg. I just want to point out the owner of your team has passed away, and you're sad about that. What's that feel like? I can't relate. I don't have any. Well, no, I hope Woody Johnson lives to be 100 and makes better decisions than he's been making, or sells the team. That'd be fine.
She's beloved for her legacy in the league. She has not been immune from social media commentary over the last 15 years. I can tell you that. We will see what happens there. Some people poo-pooing the Super Bowl. Yeah, we just had the same one 2 years ago. Some are tired of the Chiefs. A lot of people don't like the Eagles, but ultimately, who wins? I assume it's Chiefs narrowly with tons of controversy Monday morning, but what do you think?
Well, first of all, as much as, people are getting tired of seeing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, think about how many Hall of Famers we're going to see on that field, right? Think about Mahomes, automatic. Kelsey, automatic. Andy Reid, Jake from State Farm. The refs. Think about where the Chiefs would be without the refs, right? So I asked a lot of people, so who are you rooting for? And a lot of people are telling me commercials. They're hoping for really good commercials this year. Bud Light's apology tour keeps continuing, and they seem to have at least funnier ones and all that stuff. I'm actually going to repeat my prediction from last year because it did not come to pass, but I think it will one of these years. I think the Chiefs are going to win. And I think after the game, Travis Kelce is going to bring down Taylor Swift. But also, this is actually the sort of thing that gets discussed in my house. Greg, do you think Taylor Swift makes a cameo during Kendrick Lamar's halftime show? They did a Bad Blood together a little while ago.
It's possible, but I don't see her doing anything other than being a headliner at her status now. But it could happen. She's certainly going to be there.
She'll be there, yeah. So, you figure, just come on down to the field, do the duet. Anyway, so Travis Kelce will get down on one knee, and he'll bring out the Super Bowl ring from last year. And he will propose, and the world will go nuts. And not only that, every young woman in America will not only be excited, they will turn to their boyfriends and say, so when are you going to put a ring on it? And all of a sudden, there'll be this enormous pressure for people to get married. We will see a bumper crop of weddings over the next year, 2 years, however long it takes to plan a wedding. After that, we will have a baby boom as everyone settles down and gets married. The birth rate will stop declining. It will resume, and Western civilization will be restored as the Travis tells. This Super Bowl is going to change the course of Western civilization. Or, the Eagles might win.
Some people make bold predictions of the Chiefs will cover. Jim says this will change Western civilization, or it could be somewhere in the middle.
But I do want to take one time of serious look. People say the holidays are a tough time for a lot of people, and I imagine Super Bowl Sunday. Look, usually get together with friends and you have a great time, but a lot of people probably don't feel invited. They don't feel like there's anything they're celebrating. They feel isolated. They feel lonely, and they can't enjoy the festivities. So if you're going through a hard time right now, if you're depressed, if you just don't see any reason in going on, please talk to someone, reach out to someone. There's always hope, unless you're the general manager of the Giants and you traded Saquon Barkley. Then I don't know what to tell you. That's really brutal. He was Offensive Player of the Year last night, and you're going to watch him. He's probably going to run for 200 yards in the Super Bowl, win or lose. So, but hey, you kept Daniel Jones. So, that's right. He's not even with the team anymore. Okay, so sorry, Giants fans. There's nothing I could do for you.
Enjoy the festivities. Enjoy the commercials. If you have a strong rooting interest, good luck to you there. Jim and I will be back on Monday. Jim, see you then.
See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. If you don't already, tell your friends to do so as well. We'd love to have them along for the ride. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Columbus. Have a fantastic weekend and join us again on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.